Hello to all. We're about to start. We're just waiting a few seconds for latecomers to join, and then we're gonna start. Thank you very much. Hello, everybody. Can you hear me? We're about to start. We are already many people connected. So, Assalamu alaikum. Bonjour. Good afternoon. Distinguished speakers, ladies and gentlemen, dear all. I am Bokar Al-Faba, the country manager of Invest in Africa in Mauritania, and I am most pleased and honored to welcome you to this BP's Multilingual Briefing and Procurement Awareness webinar, available in English, the main room, as well as in Arabic and French in secondary rooms. Invest in Africa is a leading local content and capacity building not-for-profit organization working together in Mauritania to give local SMEs the best possible chance to benefit from foreign investors and industry giants like BP and others, who want to use their local buying power as a force for good. Invest in Africa puts together capacity and capabilities building, helping local suppliers understanding the unwritten rules and improvements they need to make to their business to be competitive. How and where can they get these new skills, certification, and qualifications needed? Or how to access finance? We work hard with all key local stakeholders in a timely, fair, and transparent manner, just like today's webinar shall demonstrate it, to bridge the communication and information gap on how to best work with multinationals. Success for us is about creating sustainable local business that can diversify and create jobs. But none of this is possible without the support from a leading major like BP and its incredible staff on the ground. Today, our session will be on briefing and procurement awareness for BP. In 2 days, it will be on accessing finance, demystify finance while fostering financial inclusion, solutions for local companies to scale up and be ready to work with top companies. I will share with you in the chat box later on the registration process for that. So we'll have now from BP, Mr. Mohamed Imam, Head of Country for Mauritania. We'll have Mr. Ahmed Elish, Head of Procurement Africa, Middle East. Mrs. Jacqueline Klahar, MNS Procurement Delivery Manager, and Mrs. Soumeya Gaide and Anne Gay, Procurement Coordinators. Incidentally, you've noticed we have more ladies than men. What a success for gender balance in the extractive industry, just like the oil and gas. I just wanted to make it clear. Presentation will be followed by a Q&A session. Kindly feel free to suggest questions in the chat box. We cannot make any promise to answer all the questions, but we'll do our best to take the most. Excuse us in advance for not being able to answer to all of your questions. Be sure also that we're gonna have an FAQ report that will gather all these questions interesting for you with the right answers from BP. Many thanks for joining us. You are more than 510 registrants. 510 registrants, which is just a record. Please also indicate us in the chat box if you want more sessions like this on similar topics. So again, many thanks, and I give the floor to Mohamed Imam, the head of country for Mauritania for BP. Mohamed, will you please step in?
Thank you. Can you hear me?
Perfectly.
Thank you.
Yes, we can as well.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Bakar. Assalamu alaikum. Welcome to our procurement awareness webinar. My name is Mohamed Imam. I am Vice President and Head of Country of BP in Mauritania. Today's session is held on behalf of GTA Phase 1 project, hosted and facilitated by Invest in Africa. Thank you very much, Bakar, for that. So in BP, we see GTA Phase 1 as establishment of world-class basin, and BP is working with our partner, energy ministers in both Mauritania and Senegal, SMH, Petrosen, and Cosmos Energy, to develop these resources in a safe and sustainable way. This includes our commitment to working with local suppliers and supporting them on their journey into industry. Today, this webinar is part of that commitment. In this session, we will share some information on GTA project, particularly on the procurement process for sourcing goods and services. This will include minimum standards and best practice, how to participate in tenders for future operational phases, how to enhance your competitiveness, and processes and timeframes for participation. However, maximizing participation of local vendors and enhancing capability is just one part of our commitment to local content. BP also aims to have a positive impact in Mauritania through investing in sustainable development projects in the communities nearby the GTA project and developing national talent in the workforce. Recently, local companies and workforce have been at the forefront of the rock extractions, transportations, and stockpile activity that have taken place as the part of the construction of GTA 1 project. I will just share a few numbers with you. At peak, over 1,400 local staff have been recruited, trained, and employed on hub terminal activities in Mauritania, including the Agust quarry, road transportation, and stockpile activity. 5 local companies were procured to deliver the rock transportation, and the stockpile, a new storage area that we built, will be handed over to the port of Nouakchott, significantly enhancing the port's capacity by 160,000 square meters, having a lasting legacy. Now, back to today's program. We hope you enjoyed this opportunity. This one more opportunity to hear more about industry procurement, fundamentals, and how BP works with local suppliers. This will also be a time for Q&A. Thank you very much for that, and I would now like to hand over to the team to begin the webcast. Over to you, Bakar.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Mohamed, for your kind words. Please, Ahmed, will you mind take the floor?
Yeah, thank you very much, Bakar, and it's a pleasure being here with the team, and thanks, Akhi Mohammed, for opening up this session. My name is Ahmed Alish. I head the procurement organization Africa. I'm actually dialing in from Angola here, and I just wanted to say a few words just before we start the webinar. I'm not going to repeat everything that Mohammed said. I think our commitment to the local economy is a #1 priority, and it's not just because it's a business commitment. It's absolutely the right thing to do. I am Egyptian. I was born and raised in Egypt, and I've seen over the years how sometimes foreign investment contribute to the economy and the education and everything else. So we'll try as much as possible in this session and following sessions to try to be as transparent as possible about opportunities, about our procurement process, just to help local suppliers also get a fair chance for competing for some of the opportunities we have in Mauritania and in Senegal. And just one example that I was referring to earlier today is 20 or 25 years ago when BP Egypt started in Egypt. I think the local market was not ready, but looking at some of the suppliers today in Egypt, they're some of the dominant supplier in the whole area in the Middle East. So I guess two key messages. One is local content is not a short journey; it's a long journey, and it takes two parties to clap, as I say. So we'll try to be as transparent as possible, and it takes a huge effort as well from the local market as well, just to make sure that we prepare ourselves for the opportunities that are out there. So one last thing, thank you very much for joining us. Bukhari, you're saying 510 participants we have on the call, which is great to see. And I wish you all the best, and I will hand it over to my colleagues now to take you through the session. Thank you.
Thank you, Ahmed, very much for this context and this kind words. So we are 20 years behind Egypt. So the journey starts here today with the team, with Sumaya, Anne, and Jackie. Would you mind take the floor, please?
Okay, thank you, Bokar, and hello, everyone. For those who don't know me, I'm Sumaya Ngaidi, MNS BP Procurement Coordinator. I would like to thank you for making the time to attend our second webinar for Mauritania, and as well thanks all the leadership team making their time to attend this meeting today. As well, I hope that through this webinar, we will be able to answer your questions and give you information for better understanding of our procurement process. And let me highlight as well regarding the importance of local content, as it has highlighted by our Senior Procurement Manager, Mr. Ahmed Alish, is an important subject to BP. Our aim is to maximize the local suppliers' participation in our tenders with an overall goal to award as many contracts as possible to the local suppliers. Thank you again for making this time, and let us now go through the presentation.
Would you like me to go to slide 2, Sumaya?
Yeah, please.
Okay. We're on slide 2.
Okay. So basically, actually, as you see in this slide is about the overall project. The location is Mauritania and Senegal. The operator is BP. Our partners are Cosmos Energy, SMH, and Petrosen. The type of it is near short floating LNG facility. The first gas is planned for 2023. The estimated amount of gas is 15 trillion cubic feet. And let us now go through a quick video where he will give you overview about the project.
Okay, I believe, Anne, you're going to show the video. Thank you.
Can you still hear me?
Yeah.
Apologies. Yeah, there is an issue with the bandwidth. However, the video.
Okay. Thank you, Anne. All right, so let us go back to the presentation.
Just one moment. I will share my screen.
All right, thank you, Jackie. So the presentation today, actually, it is in 3 languages, English, French, and Arabic. And please, if you have any questions at any time, you just can use the chat for the questions, and we will answer to that at the end of the session.
Are you able to see my slide, Sumaya?
Yes, yeah. Can you go
Okay.
to slide 3, please?
Slide 3.
All right, thank you. So we will cover today the overall of the project, the value and behaviors and code of conduct, BP procurement, a global team, sourcing process steps, the importance of the Rfi process, contract services line, Rfi outcome determining sourcing strategy, prerequisite and sourcing and contracting tools, opportunities, development phase, and operating phase. Next, please.
Slide 4.
Yeah. Our values and code of conduct. So actually for BP, we have 5 values: safety, respect, excellence, courage, and one team. And the code of conduct, actually we have, our decision is about the health, safety, and environment, our people, our partners and suppliers, government and communities, protection, our assets. Next, please. So our code of conduct, partners and suppliers, so gift and entrapment, conflicts of interest, bribery and corruption, anti-money laundering, human rights, competition and antitrust, international trade. And let's interface here about the gifts and entrapment. Actually, we are not allowed as PSCM to get any gifts from any suppliers or any partners. The only times anything can be actually giving, it shouldn't be having any like high values, and it should be like sometimes we have receiving some gifts during the Ramadan for the office. Other than that, so please make sure that this kind of entrapment is not allowed. As well about the any conflict of interest. This is as well as something is very actually important for us that we need to interface on that. As well, the consideration of the suppliers and partners in their actually workers, like women, human rights. You need to make sure that they are well treated and they are respected in their doing their business. Next, please. Right. Our objective of this session is to increase the local contract participant in request for information with a view to receiving the request for proposal, RFP, and potential winning contracts. Reach a broad range of the local owned companies in both Mauritania and Senegal. Explain the sourcing process, explain the value of full detailed response of the RFI, share information about the timing of the opportunities. So as we highlighted earlier in the summary, that the aim of this actually session, that you can understand very well our process, and feel free to ask any questions. We are here today for you and to make sure that you understand well our process. Next, please. All right, so about the procurement, BP procurement, actually a global team. Here, actually we have different area in the procurement where we have supply facing team, we have business facing team, and as well we have we have sourcing and contracting, and we have category management team. Jackie, Klahar, and Gay, and myself, we are the business-facing team for the region, for Mauritania and Senegal. And any sourcing activities, any communication regarding the RFI, RFP, tendering, it will be not receiving from our side. It will be done through our colleagues, and our colleagues are everywhere, actually, some of them in Africa, Asia, Australia, Europe, North America, South America. So you will be receiving the RFI and RFP from the teams, where you will not just receive an email from our side, like the business-facing team, and all documents are treated by our colleagues overseas the countries, where they will treat your files and actually communicate with you. So now I will pass the floor to my colleague Anne Gay, where she will go through the sourcing process. Thank you.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can.
Yes, we can. Yes, Anne.
All right. Thank you, Sumaya. Good afternoon to everyone on the webinar. I will just quickly present myself before I go into the presentation. My name is Anne-Marie Gaye. I am based in Senegal, where I'm holding the same position than Sumaya, but for Senegal. It's a pleasure to have the second option of the webinar with you, and we really hope that you will have a great session. So thank you, Sumaya, for giving the wider context on BP's activities in Mauritania and Senegal, but as well on the BP ways of working. Now I am going to present you the sourcing process steps that we are going through whenever we need to execute a tender within BP. So it's worth mentioning before we get into the review of the process that in BP, a sourcing process usually takes 1 year. 1 year is a very long time, and the reason that a sourcing process usually takes that long is that it is, in general, a thorough process that covers mainly 4 steps, as you can see here on the slide. The first step is the RFI, the request for information, which is executed within 14 weeks. The second one is the request for proposal, which is executed within 16 weeks. There is, after the RFI and the RFP step, the evaluation, which is in general executed within 17 weeks. And finally, to conclude with the tender, the team work on the award phase, which can generally take up to 9 weeks. So during my part of the presentation, I will just be covering the Rfi phase, which is the very first phase of a tender process. My colleague Jackie, who is in this webinar, will be covering the RFP, the evaluation, and then the award piece of the sourcing process. Now let us talk about the first step that I was mentioning, which is the RFI. For your information, an RFI stands for Request for Information. An RFI usually, as I was saying, is usually executed within 14 weeks. For your benefit, an RFI is the steps where we will try to understand in a very soft manner before the RFP the capabilities of the suppliers. So during that step, we will usually identify the suppliers we may include in the bid list for the Rfp phase. And it is very important also to mention that during that step, you will be asked to provide the correct contact information of your contact company so that our team can properly set you up within Arriba. We will cover Arriba later during the presentation. But it's really important that we have actually your correct details so that we can map you into our sourcing platform and communicate with you in a very smooth manner. So now, as soon as we finalize actually the piece around your contact information, we will then usually be able to share with you very high level details of the scope of work, just for you to understand what we are trying to procure or what we are trying to achieve, and also for you to understand all the requirements that are associated with the tender. So once we have shared with you the high level scope of work, we would usually, as I say previously, test your understanding of the scope of work, your capabilities, as well as your experience. And there is an important point I would like to stress here. During the RFI step, when responding back, if you believe that you cannot deliver a scope in its entirety, it is very important that you do respond and that you do let us know that what you can exactly deliver. This is critical as the responses you will be given to us will determine the sourcing strategy that we will execute for the RFP. And also your response will serve as market intelligence to BP and will allow us to contact you in the future in case we have specific needs in your area. So just to stress again that usually we in the region we do notice that unfortunately local leaders in Mauritania and Senegal, whenever they think that they don't have the capacity to deliver a scope, just not respond. So this is not maybe the way it should be done. We always encourage you to come back to us if you think you cannot do a scoop, if you think that you can just do as part of the scoop, as I was telling, and this will help us actually build, as I was saying, the strategy that we will be using during the RFP. And the general aim is to maximize the local content, the local suppliers' participation, as Sumaya said previously. So please note that during the RFI step and also during the entire tender process, as we have advised here on the slide, you are very much encouraged to ask questions or clarifications at any time during the process. So the team is here to clarify anything that needs to be clarified. So please do not hesitate to ask questions whenever you think that you need to do so. Can we move to the next slide, please, Jackie?
Slide 9.
Thank you. So before I cover this slide, I would just like to remind you that you can use the chat box of this meeting to ask questions. As Bokar said, we will try to answer at the end of the presentation to as many questions as possible. So in this slide, we are going to cover our contract sourcing approach. If you remember well, in the previous slide, I said that we will, at the very early stages of each sourcing process, identify the potential local suppliers that we might, depending on the results of the RFI qualified to the RFP stage. So we mainly have 3 different sources of identifying suppliers at RFI stage. I mean, local suppliers mainly. Our first source of information is a report delivered by a company which is called DAI that we commissioned a couple of months back. So the DAI report gives a good overview of the local suppliers' presence in the region, I mean in both Mauritania and Senegal. The other source of information that we are frequently leveraging is Invest in Africa. So there is an Invest in Africa presence in both Mauritania and Senegal. And so far, I must say that Invest in Africa has been very useful in providing a list of local suppliers to include into our tendering opportunities whenever we made the request. So thank you, by the way, for that, Bokar and Iba, if you are on the call. We do also, there is a third source of information that we do use a lot, which is our regional in-country intelligence in the person of Sumaya and myself. So indeed, Sumaya and myself are both based in the region, and we are also contributing to the identification of local suppliers for each of the sourcing activity. Finally, there is an additional source of information which is not referenced on this presentation that we in BP are working to put in place shortly. In fact, actually, we are working on opening a registration portal website to allow the local suppliers to directly register themselves with BP. And we hope actually that this portal will be available by the end of this year. So we are working very hard to get this operationalized as soon as possible. It is worth also mentioning that depending on the sourcing activity that we are executing, we will also add international bidders whenever we feel it is appropriate to do so. So once actually we have identified local suppliers and international suppliers, depending on the positive outcome of their evaluation, the selected bidders, will be progressed to the next stage of the tender, which is the RFP, the request for proposal. I said it earlier, my colleague Jackie will be covering the RFP evaluation and our presentation in a moment. It is also worth mentioning, as you can see on the slide, that there is a certain category of sourcing for which we will not be including local suppliers. So we really want to be clear on that. These sourcing are, for example, very specialized services for which we do not have, we know that we do not have now the capability in the region. There is also another category of specialized services, which are such as equipment maintenance, that we will directly contract with the original equipment manufacturer. So I will give just a concrete example here so that you can understand what I am referring to. So some of you would maybe like also to know more about the concept of OEM. And just to give a simple example, when you buy a new car, you will, for the sake of preserving the liability and the car guarantee, you will only do the maintenance with the original car manufacturer. So this is exactly the same logic that we want to apply to most of our equipment and assets. So this kind of services will not be bid with local suppliers for the moment. To finalize with this slide, you will maybe wonder what the little blue boxes are. Maybe Jackie, can you show them so that we are clear on that?
Yes, the blue boxes.
Yeah, the three
here.
boxes. Yeah, so these boxes are showing approvals and governance that we need to secure at some steps during the process. Sumaya said it earlier, we are delivering this project with our partners, SMH in Mauritania, Petrosen in Senegal, but also with Cosmos Energies. So during some steps of the process, we need to secure some additional approval from our partners as well. Okay, all right. Can we go to the next slide, please, Jackie? Okay, thank you. So another reminder as well to please use the chat box to ask questions, please. And again, we will answer them at the end of the presentation. So earlier we said that the RFI usually determines the strategy that we will be using to execute the RFPs. And the strategy that we have been using so far to maximize the participation of local suppliers in both Mauritania and Senegal is to split the scope into lots. So on the screen here, you will be seeing that we do have concrete examples that we are currently already executing within our sourcing activities. So the two examples are crane operations and fabric maintenance. So we executed the RFI for this tender, and the results of the RFI showed that maybe it was not possible for the local suppliers to do all the scopes to the scope together. And part of the responses showed that a couple of suppliers were able to deliver just a service line on the scope. And for crane operation, for example, we saw that some of the suppliers were able to deliver offshore crane operations. The other ones were able to do inspection, and the others were maybe able to do lifting. So in order actually to allow the suppliers to be part of this tender and to potentially get contract awards, we decided that we will be breaking the scope into lots so that actually, as I was saying, we award the contract to local suppliers. So this
Excuse me.
Yeah.
Sorry to interrupt you, Anne. I think on the next slide there's a good sort of image that describes how we respond to the results of an RFI and determine the forward process on the tender. Should we move to slide 11? Because it illustrates what you're describing.
Okay, all right, let's go to slide 11. Okay, thank you. So in this slide, we will see the different strategy that we can have for a request for proposal. So after the RFI, we can have cases where we decide to competitively bid the scope to nationals and international bidders because the capabilities are shared both sides. There is another point actually. Secondly, if the RFI demonstrates that on the market, so supplier A can do part of the scope and supplier B can do another part of the scope, we will then go back and break the scope into lots, as I was saying earlier, to maximize the local content participation. Lastly, if the RFI shows that a specific line, in this case, service line number 3, can be fully done locally, we will advise international bidders that our expectation is that service line number 3 is provided via a local company via subcontract. So this is bringing us back to the conversation we had earlier, where we were actually insisting that no matter what you can do, we encourage you to provide your response to the RFI. It's a really critical step as we are building our sourcing strategies. So would you like moving to the next slide, please, Jackie?
Yes, I'm now on slide 12.
Okay, thank you. So Sumaya said it before, and also in BP, we do give a critical importance to compliance, especially during tenders. So in order to ensure that tendering processes are fair and transparent, we will be using our sourcing platform that we call Arriba. So Arriba will be the only source of communication between BP and the bidder communities. And we will be using the platform to issue invites for both RFIs and RFPs. As I was saying also just now, we will be using the platform to communicate with the bidders. So please note that there will be no other approved or allowed way of communicating with suppliers during tenders. And I must say that I often see bidders inquiring questions or reaching out to the regional PSCM team for questions when a sourcing is being executed. And I would like to insist that this should not be the case. We should make a good use of Arriba during tendering opportunities. It is also worth mentioning that most of the time, the bidders miss the email invitation from Arriba as they expect to receive a BP email address. So please note that in this case, whenever an invite is issued, they are issued via an Arriba domain. And unfortunately, most of the Arriba emails usually go to suppliers' spam box. So it is very important and it's highly recommended that you do check and monitor your spam box on a regular basis, just to make sure that you do not miss the Arriba invitation. And here on the slide, we are showing an example of how the email will be structured. So in case you are participating to our tendering opportunities, please expect to receive this kind of emails. Can you go to the next slide, please, Jackie? Okay, thank you. So a question that many of you will have is, how do I log in Arriba? So after you have received the invitation, if it is your very first time in Arriba, you will be asked to follow a registration link, and the registration link will direct you to the sign-up page, and then you will be able to create your username and your password. And then any other time that you will need to connect within Arriba, you will just need to populate your username and your password. And I can tell you that it's a very smooth process. Next slide, please, Jackie. All right, thank you. So we do know that Arriba might be a new tool to many suppliers in Mauritania and Senegal, and we do want to let you know that in case you need any support with Arriba, we have a team which is dedicated to you and can provide you technical support. And that can provide you with technical support whenever you need it. So how do you access the Arriba technical support? So on the login page, there is usually a support tab that we will ask you to click on. And then actually you will be able to fill in the kind of help that you require. Please note also that you can also reach out to the Arriba team via email or by phone directly by talking to the Arriba customer support. I hope I am not mistaken to say that they have the capacity to actually monitor your communication on a very regular basis. So anytime that you need their support, please do reach out to them and they will be pleased to assist you. So I have come to the end of the presentation, to my part, sorry. Now I will hand over to Jackie, who will be describing the RFP process, as I said earlier. Thank you, everyone.
Thanks very much, Anne. So once again, my name is Jackie Klahar. I'm the Procurement Delivery Manager for the Mauritania and Senegal region, and I work for Ahmed Elish, who provided an address at the beginning of the call, and he is accountable for the entire Africa region. I see that some very good questions are coming into the chat, and we're delighted to see them, and we will do our best to answer as many of these as we can. Either some of these I think will be answered in the sections that I'm going to do now, and some we will answer after the call. Please keep all your questions coming. Our intention, as I say, is to answer as many as possible. And the ones that we don't know the answer to or cannot answer now, our intention is to include them in the FAQs so that you are as well informed as possible. So this last section of this presentation talks about the sourcing process steps. It talks about how we evaluate bids. It talks about what the prerequisites are for you to be successful working with BP. And at the very end, I will show you 3 slides that show the current list of contracts that we are taking to market, with a little explanation about the ones that are being competitively bid and the ones which are not, as described by Anne before. So you've seen this slide before. This part of the presentation talks about the request for proposal. It is, in essence, a detailed redo of the first step. Whereas the first step, the request for information, asks for very high-level information. It's not a heavy request for data and evidence. The request for proposal is far more detailed, and we check very carefully that you understand the scope of work, that your plans make sense in terms of how you will execute the work if you get the job. And we make sure that we do all of the necessary due diligence. So what you will see here in sections 3 to 6 is that we issue the request for proposal again through Arriba. There will be a very detailed scope description. There will be a draft copy of the contract, which we will require you to review and comment on. There will be a number of commercial and technical questions that we will look for you to answer. Again, before you submit your bid, after you've submitted your bid, if you have any questions about the information that you've received or any ideas that you may have for an alternative to what we're asking you for, the way to address this is to always ask your questions through Arriba and make sure that you are confident that you understand all of the materials that have been sent to you so that you can give a comprehensive response to the request for proposal. Once we've received the bids in, we evaluate them, and I will show you on the next page what, again, high level, what we evaluate and who's doing what. We will, if we don't understand your proposal, or if we think you have made a mistake or you've left something out, there will be rounds of qualification questions and meetings if necessary. And then we will have two teams that do a detailed technical evaluation, including health, safety, security, and environment issues and quality and local content, actually. Sorry, that's in D. And there'll be a separate team that looks at the commercial elements of your proposal. We'll also do a counterparty due diligence. So we are checking that the company has not been involved in any fraudulent activities in the past. And once we have done all of those things, we will make an award recommendation, which then goes through the approval process, which was identified by the blue boxes in the earlier slide that we showed you. We get approval of the award recommendation, we finalize and sign the contract, and then we issue a purchase order. The purchase order is the document against which you issue your invoices. And then, depending on the complexity of the contract, we will have a kickoff meeting. I will move to slide 16. So, as I hinted in the previous slide, the evaluation is done by separate teams, and they consider separate things. The technical team looks at your response to the scope, the health, security, safety, and environment section, the quality section, and your local content plan. And that review is important irrespective of whether you are a local contractor or an international contractor. We will still want to understand your local content plan for this contract. The commercial team will be looking at the contract rates that you are proposing, any payment milestones that you may be proposing, the terms and conditions, and cyber risk. We also look at the local content plan, but it is largely led by the technical team. These two separate teams evaluate your bids independent of each other, and then they come together to arrive at a final award recommendation. What we do is we split all of the elements of the evaluation into sections which are given a weighting. And so each item is scored, multiplied by the weighting, and that gives a weighted score. The total of that weighted score is the score for your proposal, and it is the best score, typically, that we make the award recommendation to. That means that we don't always select the lowest priced offer. We also, as shown in the previous slides, reserve the right to split the award amongst more than one bidder if that seems to be the right thing to do. So I hope that it's a little bit clearer for you that the evaluation of your proposal is a holistic one. Okay, I'll move to slide 17, and I want to talk about the keys to success for dealing with BP. Excuse me. So the first thing here is really digital readiness. The point of showing you the slide at the beginning, where we described the procurement team and where in the world they are, is that genuinely the people who will be evaluating your bids, both technically and commercially, these people are unlikely to be in Mauritania or Senegal. BP works in a very digital way. I would say the whole industry works in a very digital way. And so having a digital presence, having digital capability is really key to success in this industry. For example, when we are trying to identify you to begin with, one of the first ways that we look you up outside of the information that we receive from Invest in Africa or from the reports that we already have or from our local staff is to do a web search to find you. So if you don't have a web presence, an internet presence, this can make it more difficult to find you. So if you don't have an internet presence, I would recommend that that is something that you do. Secondly, we have a real concern in BP about cybersecurity. It is one of our highest priority risks, and breaches of cybersecurity presents a risk to the security of our information, our IT systems, and sometimes our operations. We take cybersecurity extremely seriously, given that there is a strong likelihood that cyber attacks will target our suppliers in order to gain access to our information. We have, in fact, seen it before, where some of the world's largest companies that BP deal with have had very serious cyber attacks that then have impacted BP and other oil companies. So we try to work together with our suppliers to share the role of protecting both our and your information and systems. And one of the ways that that shows up is that when we issue a request for information or a request for proposal to you, we will not issue it to an email address that does not have a corporate domain name. So we will not issue an email to an @gmail.com or an Yahoo SN or Yahoo FR. We need to issue the any document to an email that is, for example, firstname.lastname@companyname.com or companyname@companyname.com or .sn, because then we know that you are in control of your digital communications in and out of your company, and you are better able to manage your own cybersecurity. I've included in the link here, there is a link, again, externally available, that talks about cybersecurity and BP's suppliers. A third thing that is helpful to be successful is that you use a modern Office suite. So, for example, if you use Office 365 or the Apple equivalent, I don't know what the current Office pages and which is the equivalent of Word, and Numbers, which is the equivalent of Excel, but use an updated version. Likewise, use the latest operating systems. So, use Windows 10. I think Windows 11 is about to be published. I think it's published already. use the most updated web browsers like Microsoft Edge or Chrome or Firefox. And the reason we point this out is we have had examples before where local companies are using very old operating systems which does not work with current modern apps. The next point here is to respond to the RFI and the RFP. Respond to the RFI and the RFP. Again, even if you think you cannot support the entire scope as published, tell us what you can do, because we retain that information, and for the future, if we have a need for just that item, we know who can do it. If you are declining to participate in the RFP or the RFI, say why, because you may be suitable for something else later. Not responding at all tells us nothing. And I would just like to sort of reiterate that we're genuinely committed to understanding the local market. And when we initially gather data on suppliers to whom we will issue the RFI, the list of suppliers that we typically engage is very, very long. We often issue RFIs to 30, 40, 70 suppliers. And sometimes we don't get a response, but when we don't get a response, we don't know whether that's because it's entirely the wrong company, they're not interested, or they feel that they cannot do the entirety of the work. So again, a plea, please respond. I've mentioned this several times. So please respond fully to the questions that you're asked. Even if you are a very large, well-known company in your country, the people who are evaluating your bids do not know you, do not know your business, and they can only evaluate your proposals or your bid on what you have told them. So if you don't say something, then we cannot score it. And lastly, for this slide, despite this engagement session being presented in English, French, and Arabic, all communication with BP will be in English. So even if, for example, when you set yourself up in Arriba, you choose to have the Arriba operating functions in your native language, which you can do, any content that you receive from BP will be in English. Any proposals that we get that are not in English will be disqualified and will not be reviewed. So please bear that in mind. So I'm moving to slide 18. Slide 18 is to talk about the tools that we use. Excuse me. So kind of going through these in sequence. When we issue the request for information and the request for proposal, that will be using Arriba. The full name is Arriba OneSource. So you will initially receive a request to respond to an RFI through Arriba OneSource. You will also receive the request for proposal through that same tool. Any communications will be through that tool. The next time that there will be a tool that BP is using that you come across, excuse me, we use a tool for Arriva, and this is where we do our counterparty due diligence, and where we check that the company that we think we're about to do business is who we think it is, and that they are, not a company that has, been involved in any kind of bribery, fraud, or corruption. This is a very important step. All contracts are signed electronically, and we use a tool called DocuSign. It's quite easy to set yourself up to use DocuSign, and you only need to do so when the contract is sent to you for signature. And then once all of those things are done, the contract is signed, everything is good. As I mentioned before, we create a purchase order, and the purchase order is created on SAP, not SAP Ariba OneSource, but SAP. This SAP contract, sorry, this SAP purchase order is made up of what we call the contract price book. So here it includes all of the rates, all of the pricing rates that make up your contract, from which we will issue a purchase order. The purchase order, as I mentioned before, is the contractual document against which you submit your invoice. Excuse me. And its invoice payment is also done through Backbone. Okay, I have about 4 more slides to go, and then we will open the floor for questions. We're trying to ensure we leave plenty of time to answer. So you will have heard Sumaya, Anne, and I refer to ourselves as the production phase business-facing team. Right now, this endeavor is in what we call the development phase or the project. We are not part of the project team. The project team has already issued what they refer to as their Tier 1 contracts. And those contracts have been issued to Eiffage for the LNG hub terminal, to McDermott for subsea, wells and subsurface equipment, for Technip FMC for the FPSO, floating production storage and offloading vessel. The FPSO, this was one of the vessels you saw in the video, and the FLNG, floating liquefied natural gas, is the other vessel that you saw in the video. So these 4 contracts have already been awarded. So in the development phase, the opportunity for local companies to be awarded contracts comes from the contracts that these companies are going to award. Now, one of the questions that we're often asked is, do we know which contracts they're awarding? No. Is the sourcing process that we just described the same for them? I would say broadly yes, because this is pretty much the process that the industry uses, but we do not know the details of their internal procurement processes, so we can't describe it. So again, these companies will be issuing their own requests for proposals using their own electronic tools. You should sort of keep your eyes open for any opportunities that come up from these contractors. Earlier in the year, in July, McDermott actually held a contract event that some of you will have attended, in which they described some of the sourcing activities that they have coming up. So, I'm sure you're wondering what opportunities exist. The next 3 slides will talk about that. So, what you are seeing here, this is slide 1 of 3. Slide 20 that I'm showing on the screen now is slide 1 of 3, which describes the contracts that we intend to take to market. Excuse me. You will see that there are blue blocks and green blocks. The difference between the two is that the green blocks are those items that we are going to single source to the original equipment manufacturer. This is what Anne was describing in the earlier part of this presentation. The blue blocks are the sections that are being competitively bid. You will see that some of this sourcing has been already ongoing for quite some time, and we are towards the end of the sourcing process. Some of it we have yet to start. You can see in 2021, I've got Q3 highlighted. That's just to indicate where, that's just to indicate time. I will go to slide 21. On this slide, essentially the same information. However, you will see that some of the lines are grayed out, and they are grayed out for the reasons stated in the status column. So, for example, the aviation contract has already been awarded. The supply-based contract has already been awarded. However, there are some other contracts where we are still developing the strategy at the highest level, and so I have graded those ones out as I'm not yet certain what the sourcing timeline would be, and I don't really want to mislead anybody here about what is happening. I will say this, that this whole list of contracts and the timing is always subject to change, and that's why it says so in red at the top of this document. I think, in fact, I can see this. Since I created this slide last month, a new contract has been added to the list. So this is always being updated. We are sharing these slides with you at the end, all of the slides, including these three. It is our intention to put a version of these slides on the BP Mauritania and the BP Senegal website, so that you can refer to it and always see what contracts are coming up, what contracts have been awarded. We will do that on a quarterly basis. Again, it's not quite ready yet, but as soon as we've got it available, we'll put it on the website. And again, I think, excuse me, I just need to take a sip of water. Excuse me. I think again, since September, when we presented this to the Senegalese market, another contract has been awarded, the Subsea Engineering and Integrity Management contract, which you see was at the end of the cycle anyway. That contract has now been awarded. And the last page, again, very similar layout. Blue represents those contracts that at this time we believe will be competitively bid. Contracts that are in grey are those that have been awarded. Excuse me. So that is the end of the presentation that we had prepared for you. I hope you found it useful. We will now move to answering the questions that are in the chat. We will generally take them in order, and it is always our intention to be transparent. So we will answer what we can. If we think that we don't know the answer or that we need to do a little bit more research to give you an accurate answer, we will say that. So I'm going to, I'll leave the slides up on the board so that if one of your questions relate specifically to a slide, we can move back to that slide. So, excuse me. At any time, Anne or myself or Samaya will be answering. So we will just, it's kind of a free-flowing section now. So the first question that I can see, I believe it came from the French room, and it says how to access current offers. So first of all, I'm hoping that the 3 slides at the end give you an idea of the current offers that are available. In slide 9, we showed you that, let me answer it this way. I think the underlying question here is, what can you as a local supplier proactively do to register your interest in any of the opportunities that exist? The answer to that question, which is not exactly what was asked, but the answer to that question is this. In the future, by the end of the year, you will be able to register your interest in whatever it is that your business sells with BP directly on the supplier portal. Until that is ready, in terms of what you can do yourself proactively, I would recommend that you register with Invest in Africa. Why? Because we always go to Invest in Africa to help us to identify potential suppliers, which they have done very ably for more than a year now. Invest in Africa does not is not a screening process. They do not do an evaluation on our behalf at this time. They will give us a very comprehensive list of suppliers, and everybody whose information they provide us, we will issue the RFI to that company. So in terms of what you can do today, I would say register with Invest in Africa. In the future, I mean, you can still register with Invest in Africa, but you can also register with BP. Again, I'll just say this: if, as we are answering your questions, if they are not answered, please put the questions in the chat and we will come back to it. The next question sorry, go ahead, Sumaya.
All right, there is one question I would like to respond for. Also, what is your strategy to dispatch the scopes to secure chance for the maximum locals companies to participate? So as it was shared by Jackie earlier, basically when you receive any RFI from our side, what you need to do, you need to highlight the area that you are capable for, and from there we can take it off actually. Thank you, Jackie. I pass to you the floor again.
Thank you very much. The next question I see here, it says, please specify the activities that are not concerned in these proposals. I don't directly understand that question. I suspect you're asking about where we will competitively bid and where we will issue the contract to the original equipment manufacturer. If that is the question that you're asking, I showed that on slides 20, 21, and 22. Mm-hmm. The next question I see says, could you please give us more detailed about the commissioned report? Yes and no. BP commissioned a report through a company called DAI, and DAI doesn't seem to stand for anything that we can see. The only reference we have for them is DAI. They did the report. They prepared for and executed the report end of 2019, beginning of 2020. They went to both companies. They did both desk investigation and interviews with selected contractors. They based their analysis on our specific contracting need. So they had a copy of, a copy of all of the contracts that we intended to award, and they used that to determine how they went about providing an industrial baseline study.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And Jackie, maybe I will respond to the two following questions.
Yep.
The first one on cranes. Actually, for this one, the sourcing activity is still on process. We will not give maybe all the details, but please note that the RFP is still going on. On the other question, which is related to the identification of suppliers. So I think the question is, how is the identification of suppliers made? Is it through a pre-established directory or by call for proposal via the media, and which ones? Okay, so here I would like to advise that we do not publish our opportunities in the media. We do not do public procurement, and previously actually we showed that we have different sources of identifying local suppliers that I am very happy to reiterate. The first one is the DAI study that Jackie just talked about. The second one is who invests in Africa. So as Jackie said, it's highly recommended that you register yourself with Invest in Africa, not only to have visibility with BP, but with the wider industry as well. The third source of information is the knowledge that resides within Sumaya and myself. And finally, I said it before, we want to provide a registration portal for the suppliers to be able to directly register themselves with BP. And we believe, again, that this portal will be available in the next couple of months, by the end of the year, we hope. So back to you, Jackie and Sumaya.
All right, thank you, Anne. There is here one question where they ask, are you specifying documents to be sent in the bid, or could the bidder share all documents that she believes they should be sent? Basically, in the RFP package, we will be asking about all documents to be provided by the bidders, and you should respond as per the requirement sent it to you. The other one is about our service providers' technical advice, waste sanitation concerned by this session. Yeah, as we mentioned earlier, actually this session is open for all services and all service providers, where we shared actually our procurement process to make sure that you can understand well, and it will help you as well to participate in any of our coming biddings. Thank you. I pass to you again the floor, Jackie.
You're welcome. I have to admit, you two have answered a couple of questions, and I'm a little bit confused as to where we are. So I'm trying to answer them in the sequence that I see them. So I will answer the next question. If I've missed something, I apologize up front. I see a question here that says, and I'm going to read it out and tell you up front, I'm not really sure how to answer it, because it seems to be a statement rather than a question. But it says, during your last experience, 2018, you have combined your all ports operations in one contract, despite that in the past, this scope was split in 4 scopes by the past operators: port call and stevedoring, mobile plan and storage, customs clearance, and international freight forwarding. So I'm not exactly certain of your question, but again, to show that we are trying to be transparent, I will try to answer this. So this is not entirely correct, this statement. For example, we do have a customs clearance and international freight forwarding contract, and that contract is separate from the port call and stevedoring mobile plan and storage contract. Those are 2 separate contracts. That's number 1. Number 2, I do know that BP And I think I will use Cosmos as an example because I don't know of other operators in the region. That BP and Cosmos are two very different companies from what I can make out. We have different ways of working and different strategies. So you cannot assume that because Cosmos adopted a particular strategy, that is the strategy that BP will adopt. Also, because BP is a different sized company to Cosmos, our risk profile is different and we manage our risk profile differently. So you will find that there are times that BP combines what Cosmos would have issued as separate contracts into a single contract because of A, the way we work, and B, our view on risk. Now, again, if that's not answering the question that you were asking, please feel free to comment again. Let's have a look here. It says here, thanks for the excellent presentation. Thank you. It was good to see BP have a good, transparent procedure in matters of procurement, but I think it's only on paper, as we have seen in your recruitment procedure. My question is about the process of recruitment, as you mentioned earlier, that you have more than 100 staff. As Mauritanian professionals, we do not have a clear idea about it. Okay. That's quite a lot there. I'm going to thank you for the compliments to begin with, and I will try to address the question. I apologize. I'm now starting to talk at my normal pace. We slow down again. So, I cannot comment really on recruitment because that is handled by BP's People and Culture Department, or HR, Human Resources, as some people reference them. The earlier comments about having more than 100 staff, I would say, relate to the fact that we have, staff members in the Mauritanian office and staff members in the Senegal office. These are BP badged people. In addition, we have hired around 50 Mauritanian and Senegalese citizens as BP staff who will become the operators of this asset in the future. As it happens, these 50 people, I think there are 48 of them now, because two who've left the company, but these people are undergoing a multi-year training program, the first part of which was a year and a half of English, and the second part is technical training. They are currently, today they are in our office in Sunbury, but they are in the UK undergoing their technical training. So I think in claiming that we have 100 staff, it's these two groups of people that we're talking about. There are other people that have worked on the project, the development phase, but they are not BP staff. They are the contractors, the tier 1 contractors staff, or the tier 1 contractors subcontractors staff. Okay.
Yeah, go ahead, Sumer.
Okay, thank you, Jackie. And basically, there is a couple of questions around like this one. Are you consider updating your database? A number of capability companies are not on your list. And same question coming back, actually asking, I am not yet registered with BP or any its partners. How can I register and participate in a couple of services? Basically, just to let you know that currently we are working in our own vendor registration portal, where we plan to publish as soon as it's ready, and this one will allow anyone to actually register directly with BP. Meanwhile, we are using actually the database from Invest to Africa and our market intelligence as shared with by my colleagues, actually Jackie and Anne earlier. Thank you. So I pass you again the floor.
Thank you. Anne?
Yeah, there is an interesting question from Sada Diallo, who is asking, can the local content be part of a OEM scope? So to this question, I will answer yes. And even if we, for certain category of services, even if we do not contract with local suppliers, we will always, during the sourcing activity, request the OEM provider to actually supply us with a local content plan. For us, it's very important to understand over the life of the contract if the supplier is going to use nationals during in the workforce for executing the contract. We want also to understand if the supplier is going to subcontract with national suppliers for delivering the scope. But there is also a third element which is very important when it comes to local content that we do not often talk about, which is transfer of competency and training. So I believe that it's very important for this kind of specialized scope that we do ensure that the suppliers provide a clear plan to demonstrate how the knowledge is going to be transferred from international suppliers to local suppliers over the life of the contract. And for me personally, this is the only way that we can have actually a very, specialized industry over the coming years. So definitely, Sada, local content is something that we are looking after, even with the OEM scope. And I hope that it does answer your question.
I'm glad you raised that, actually, Anne, because one of the questions that we may have skipped over is to this main point. So, and I think my boss Ahmed Elish at the beginning, he was alluding to the fact that over time local content grows. So, a couple of things I want to say here. One, somebody asked, I'm not looking at the question right now, but somebody asked, how is local content evaluated? And this is the answer. We're looking at 2 or 3 things. We're looking at, the ideal situation would be to award the contract directly to a local contractor. That would be ideal. If you are available, you have the capability, the capacity, and the interest, that's the ideal situation. Where those things are not available, we're looking for international contractors to subcontract part of the work to a national company. We are looking for international contractors to employ a percentage of their crew from the citizens of Mauritania and Senegal. And I don't just mean employ them at the lowest level jobs, but to the extent that the capability is available in country, to employ them at all levels through their organization. And we do ask about that. And thirdly, we want to, as Anne has talked about, we want to see the planned transfer of knowledge, the training of people, so that over time, contracts, the work is executed by national personnel. Over time, more contracts can be awarded to national companies. And a very recent example, we were looking at bids for a highly specialized scope of work. And one of the key differentiators between the two very equal, very competent suppliers was that one of them had a robust local content program in which they articulated how they intended to transfer the knowledge for one of the key roles from an expat who will start the role at the startup of our asset to a Mauritanian and a Senegalese professional within a defined timescale. So we do look at that. Excuse me. And Osamaya? Okay, I'll ask a question that came from the French room. It says, do we still have the option of sending you business email addresses instead of personal addresses? Absolutely. We do not want your personal email address at all. We want your business email address.
Okay, maybe there is here some comment. Thank you to BP for the explanation, which are relevant and constructive, and we will look forward to participating in the future business opportunity within the GTA project. We would like to thank you as well, because the objective basically of this session that we share with you the procurement process and the way of work of BP. And as we mentioned earlier, and by all our actually bosses and team here, that we are willing to have more local companies from Mauritania and Senegal to participate in our bidding exercise. And our aim to see more people actually getting contract out from this project, GTA and projects. So thank you very much for your comments as well.
There is a comment here that says, it seems that a couple of contracts have already been awarded, including a few local ones. What competition process was followed for these? The same process that we've shown you here. All sourcing, unless we declare it to be single source for whatever reason, all sourcing is done as a competitive sourcing event. Our default position is that we will competitively bid something. We only do a single or sole source if that's if there is a solid reason to do so. We normally have to, we always have to give some pretty strong justifications for not doing a competitive bid. And that doesn't matter whether we are doing, a bid for something local or not. Only in the event that it's an extremely small spend might we not bother with that, because you can imagine that it takes a lot of resources and time to execute a full RFP process, as we've described. So if it's some very small, very, very small contract, we may not go through this entire process, but this is the process that we follow for the vast majority of sourcing. And I would like to point out a couple of things to you on slide 20 that you may not, it's up on the screen now, that you may not have noticed, but I want to point them out. On slide 20, pointing with my red dot here, the first two lines, it says General Maintenance Services 1, and then it says General Maintenance Services 2, National Contractors Only. Here is an example where we issued the RFI. When we received the information from the market, we could see that there were scopes of work that the national suppliers of both countries were very well placed to take that work on their own. And so we split that RFP into two, so that there is a portion that for sure will go to a national contractor, whoever is successful. It doesn't mean that they don't get the opportunity to bid on the scope number one, but they're up against a broader range of bidders. But where we can see for sure, national contractors can support a scope, that is what we do. Another example, fabric maintenance. I can tell you here that, and this is not information that we regularly give, but I'm trying to explain to you how we work. For fabric maintenance, we issued the RFI to international and national contractors. We could see that national contractors can do this work. We didn't include any internationals on the bid list, only national contractors. So you can't tell that for fabric maintenance, but I'm telling you that to try and show you that the process that we follow, it does work. And where we know that the local market is very well placed to do the work, there's no point in including international contractors. If we can see that the local market might be able to do the work, but we're not certain, there is not enough information in the RFI to say do not include a local contractor, but not enough information to say 100% they can do it, then we would have both international and nationals on the bid list. Actually, that comment I just gave you there, I think answers, apologies if I'm saying your name incorrectly. I would say this name is Mohammed Atai, or I'm not sure, A-T-I-G-H, but you say, for information, there are local maintenance service providers that can perform the scopes in full compliance. OEM. Actually, I don't understand what you're saying, because I hadn't read the whole thing. Where you say that there are local maintenance service providers that can perform the scopes in full compliance, yes, that is true. And where we see that, we've restricted the bid list to only them. Where we have bought, for example, a high pressure compressor or a screw compressor or a gas turbine maintenance, using the same analogy that Anne used to begin with, certainly in the early years, we would not have anybody other than the original equipment manufacturer maintain that equipment. That is a position that BP takes across all of its assets. In fact, that's not a Mauritania and Senegal specific decision. That is how we ensure that, particularly for critical equipment, that we are sure of the availability and performance of that equipment. It's the kind of equipment where if that fails, everything stops. Is Anne still on the call? I don't see her. She may have dropped off.
I lost the. I had connection issues, and I just managed to get back on the call.
Yeah. Okay. Someone says here from the French room, I'm interested in the subject services of slide 21 and 22, in particular mapping, coastal erosion, surveillance speciality, hydrographic surveys. How can I follow the procurement process? Which ones is that he's talking about then? Those descriptions are not quite. Oh, this is in. Is this in the HSSE section? Ah, yeah. I think this person is talking about. If it says, does it say here coastal erosion? Where is that? Ah, okay. Yes, I can. I'm showing slide 22 now. Actually, to the person that's asked that question, those contracts have already been awarded. I do not know off the top of my head what the contract term is for those contracts, but eventually those contracts will come to an end and we will bid them again. If you are interested in that kind of contract, I would suggest that for now you register within Invest in Africa, and for the future when the BP portal is open, that you register with BP. The intention is that the portal will allow you to provide your company details, including your contact details, and then for you to tell us of a list of potential contract types that we will have in this region. Tell us which ones you're interested in, so that when in the future we have to rebid this work, we can go to that portal and get your information. The next question, it says, slide 22, are the hotel and catering services not already granted? For my part, I had followed the entire process on Arriba up to the request for pricing, which we did not respond to with our group. I know there was a subsequent negotiating conference that we were invited to by mistake, but on the slide, you indicate that the selection for catering is at the start of the process. No, you have misunderstood. So the information you are speaking about is the one line up from the bottom. This is remote hotel and catering services. This is for the floating production, storage and offloading vessel and the hub. These are both offshore. You can see from the blue bar here that the sourcing process started in the fourth quarter of 2020, and we are now, well, it's October, we are in the fourth quarter of 2020. This indicates that we're nearly at the end of this sourcing process. Excuse me.
Jackie?
Yes.
Jackie, I'm happy to allow you to have a drink of water, maybe.
Thank you.
just to say that we are 10 minutes to 10 to 17, 10 to 5. So just wanted, maybe you can pick up one or two more questions, maybe Sumaya or Anne. You can pick up one or two questions before we close this. What a terrific event, and what a clarification you gave to the floor. Thank you very much for that.
Okay, thank you, Bokar. Maybe a question or a comment that was not made during the in the chat box actually, and that I wanted to briefly talk about. I believe that actually in the region there is something that we should be promoting very well, which is joint venture. So we have on both sides, we have Senegalese suppliers and Mauritanian suppliers. So as suppliers, the tips that we, as VP, maybe the tip that we want to give you is that whenever there is a sourcing activity that is to be executed, just maybe think the other way around. If you believe that for the moment you don't have the capacity maybe to deliver a scope, please try to implement as much as possible joint venture with other suppliers so that you can benefit maybe from the skills and you know, the knowledge of other suppliers. I think that this is something which is very important. Bokar said earlier that there will be a webinar dedicated to access on financing, but I know that also at some point Invest in Africa is working very hard actually to promote joint venture within the market. So please stay tuned as more is coming on that.
Thank you, Anne.
We have about 7 minutes left. I've been going down the questions in the sequence that they appear. Let me just go to the bottom in case there's something that really we're not answering. Let's have a look. That's from... What's this next one? List of current suppliers. Yeah, here's a great comment. It's making me smile. It says here, in order to assist in the operation phase, it would be good for local companies to know the overall list of current suppliers for GTA project, specifically for pumps, compressors, block valves, control valves, motors, There's a great long list. Yeah, that's not going to happen. I'll be completely honest here. We're not typically in the habit of giving a list of names of the companies to whom we have awarded contracts. That we don't do that. Never in my 20 years with BP, we don't do that. I don't see it. I don't want to raise expectations that we will do so. We could help you provide the best services at any time for either scheduled or emergency repair. Thank you for the... Yeah, I'm sorry. This is not something that we typically do. So I just want to be completely transparent there. Again, another great question. It says, African governments are known to be hostile to transparency. Do you think you can really be transparent here? So, you know, BP is an international company. We are registered in the US and we are registered in the UK. And because we are registered in both of these countries, we are, even if we are doing business in Mauritania and Senegal, we are subject to the laws of both of those countries around anti-bribery, corruption, any kind of facilitation payment. And this is why we've started the presentation on this particular topic. I think one of the very earliest slides, yes, this one, slide number 5. We started off by talking about the code of conduct and the way that we work. We are obligated to work in a transparent manner. That is our obligations under the law. That is BP's, it is in BP's DNA to work in as transparent a manner as possible. It is in our code of conduct, which is available for anybody to read. Yes, on slide 4, you will see that the code of conduct, which is available in English, French, and Arabic on bp.com, it talks about the way that we work, and we absolutely have to be as transparent as possible. We do know that according to the International Transparency Index, that both countries, Mauritania and Senegal, do not have a good transparency index score. And because we know what region we are working in, we are very careful to make sure that we are transparent throughout the process. We know who we're working with. And certainly before we award a contract to anybody, we do our counterparty due diligence, which is on slide 18. That's where we talk about this tool called Arriba. We cannot manage governments. We are an international company. We cannot manage governments, but we can manage ourselves. And our intent is always to do things in a transparent, auditable manner, such that if there is a claim of any kind of fraudulent behavior or bribery or corruption of any type, that we can demonstrate that we have done the right things in good faith. Sorry, Sumaya, you were going to say something? Or Anne?
No, actually, this code of conduct details, they are in page 5, and as well they can find it in our website.
Yeah, I just wanted to add to what you are currently saying, Jackie, and I want to come back to the beginning of the presentation where we were saying that a sourcing process in BP usually take 1 year. So it's not an hazard that it is taking 1 year. It's taking 1 year because we want to make sure that we do comply and with all the steps that we need to comply with. We want to make sure that the process is fair and transparent. And this is why we are taking our time to look at each step of the process and make sure that we do the right thing at every step of the process. I hope that it does answer the question as well.
And just before you speak, Bokar, there's one last question. I just saw it and I would like to answer it. The last question is, do you consider Senegalese and Mauritanian both are local. From BP's perspective, yes, is the answer to that question. But the Mauritanian and the Senegalese government are both committed to this contract. This endeavor. Both countries are contributing to this endeavor. Both countries should benefit equally from this endeavor. So yes, a Senegalese is local, a Mauritanian is local. And over to you with 1 minute to go, Bokar.
It's just excellent. I don't have anything else to add. You addressed it perfectly. Thank you very much to you, Jackie, for taking time for enlightening us. Thank you as well, Anne, for your Senegal market. You made it possible through your connections issues to join and to explain very carefully. Soumeya, you are here. You are Mauritanian. You were on same boat here. Would you mind give us some insight for the end of this session, please?
Thank you, team, and thank you, Bokar. So basically, I would like to thank you all for your participation. It was a pleasure for us to share with you our values, behavior, code of conduct, procurement process, and the procurement plan. And this will help and facilitate our working relationship and provide more opportunity for all our local suppliers. And thank you again. I hand over to you, Bokar, and thank you, Bokar, for all this organization.
It's just a pleasure to give some enlightenment to the local markets. People must understand that you are not inaccessible. You are here for them. You are here to help local content to spread and to have some great results. We are very proud here, we as Invest in Africa, to be with you in this very long journey. We need to manage expectations. It will take a lot of time, but with people like you, with your engagement, with your commitment, we are truly convinced that we're going to achieve something meaningful for you, for the country, for the land, for the people, for the communities. We don't we don't forget anyone. So again, we're happy to contribute to supporting this process as Invest in Africa for the local content strategy and operational effectiveness in Mauritania. This event was tangibly demonstrating how BP is committed to this. So thank you very much for your questions. Let me know if you want more, if you need more sessions like this on similar topics. Soon you will receive with Jackie and Soumeya the FAQ report, giving you a lot of details regarding the questions, and it will be written, so it will be good for you to digest it, if I can say it, and to build on it, to capitalize on it later on. Thanks for Mohamed Liman, the head of BP in Mauritania, as well as Ahmed Elish, the head of procurement. And many thanks for your good attention. You were very, very, very. You are many actually. You are numerous, and congratulations for joining us in 3 languages. And all the people made it possible on the backstage. A huge thanks for them, and we hope that you start feeling that we are here for you guys. We are here to help you, and thanks for BP for making this possible. Don't forget to connect to our Access to Finance webinar then on this Thursday at 11 with top leading companies in Mauritania. Feel free to go and to register yourself at Invest in Africa and appmauritania.com. I put it already on the chat box. Register, let us know who you are, what you are doing, what kind of things you can suggest, and be sure that BP will just use this radar to Invest in Africa, as well as some other market intelligence to screen the local market and help opportunities get to you guys. So make sure about it. We are very proud to welcoming you and to hosting you on this event. Please, Jackie and Soumeya, would you want to add anything, something? Please feel free to do so.
Yeah, this is Jackie. This is the 4th of these presentations that we have done now. The first one was to the Mauritanian market in July, and then we did 2 to the Senegalese market last month, and this one again. We are going to be working, or finish off working, I should say, on the frequently asked questions. The questions were very different for each of the 4 sessions, and we wanted to wait until we had done all of them to make sure that we had a really good selection of questions to to present to the market. I really appreciate the questions and the honesty in expressing what you think is happening or what you know is happening. We appreciate that. Although this series is essentially finished, it's not the end. We are, as a team, working with our colleagues about what else we can do in 2022 that can again engage the market and tell them what's going on, and we're working out what else we can do that will help. This team is made up of people who are Mauritanian and Senegalese. Our head of the region is Egyptian, and he is in fact a direct recipient of local content, as someone who has worked his way up to a very senior position in BP over time. And as well as our contractual commitment that we have, as well as our need to be a good corporate citizen, the 4 of us, I would say partially because of our cultural heritage, have a personal interest in this. And so it may not be obvious to you when you don't communicate with us directly, but we're working very hard to make sure that as people, we can look our friends and colleagues in the face and say that we're doing the right thing around local content. So thank you for listening to us, and we will hope to have something else in the first quarter of 2022. I admit right now I don't know what it is, but we are working on it. Okay, thank you.
Jackie, I will provide you with a lot of ideas. I have a lot of ideas, so I will suggest some with you. We also thank Renato, who made it possible to join this session. Thank you to all of you. Sorry, we are unable to give you access to ask questions. We ask you to raise some questions in the chat box, and we'll make sure that you will receive the presentation as well as the FAQ report. Thank you very much to all of you. We are very pleased to hosting you and seeing you next time and in 2 days again.
Thank you, Bakar. Thank you very much, all. Bye.
Thank you all. Goodbye.
Thank you,
Goodbye.
Soumya. Thank you, Jackie. Thank you, Anne. Thank you to all participants.
Bye.
Bye-bye.